Next topic from the 12 December press conference focuses on government funding with questions and answers on hiring, legal red tape on getting rid of non-performers, and facility.
Hi, thanks again for doing this.
Good morning.
I wanted to ask about the upcoming December 20th funding deadline. I know, of course, VA is in a different situation than other agencies when it comes to matters of government shutdowns or CRs or things of that nature. But what impact, if any, is the VA anticipating if there is perhaps a government shutdown, or if Congress does get a CR or a continuing resolution over the finish line, what that would mean for VA, especially given its budget shortfall situation?
Yeah, Jerry, thanks so much for the question. And so I think what I'd say is that, let me just segregate the question. First, I'd say that, we have protocols here internally to make sure that as we approach a CR date, that we get the relevant personnel from across the enterprise together to do prudent planning. So that work is ongoing. They just had, I think, their most recent meeting yesterday. So I don't have like a readout of that process on any specifics that we're focused on, but I can tell you that that team, which is now very experienced, is meeting on a regular basis, planning for eventualities if Congress doesn't extend the CR by the 20th, or come up with an omnibus appropriations act or something. So that planning's ongoing. I don't have a readout of that. It is true that we have requested $6.6 billion in additional funding for the rest of this fiscal year for VHA. We need that funding because we are delivering more care, more benefits to more vets more quickly, as Josh said, than ever before. And so, with that funding, we'll be able to hire clinicians, replace aging medical equipment, purchase necessary medications and prosthetics for veterans, and most importantly, maintain the high quality health care that the veterans have come to expect and surely richly deserve. So, we're answering questions to Congress on this issue. We've had testimony in 2 different hearings in the House in the course of the last 4 weeks or so, and we're going to keep working on this to make sure that we can get that funding.
Mm-hmm. And until that $6.6 billion gets addressed one way or another, what's the VA's hiring picture look like? Is it in this still kind of constrained hiring environment that it's been in for much of this fiscal year? What does that look like until Congress addresses that?
Yeah, rather than add new facts or new analysis to this question, let us get you what we've said on this, particularly because I may not have the most up-to-date assessment from our VHA colleagues. So let us take that and get that answer from VHA. I do know that one of the things we're concerned about is, over the course of the last year or so, we have been delaying certain technology purchases and equipment purchases so as to, not compromise other funding needs. So that would be one of the things we're particularly focused on, as I listed that series of investment priorities just a couple of sentences ago. But in terms of hiring, let us get you a very specific answer on that.
Okay. And then finally, I wanted to get your thoughts on, with the incoming Congress, the House and VA, the House and Senate VA leadership have been pretty clear that they want to make the VA to make full use of the VA Accountability and Whistleblower Protection Act. You've told us before, about a year or so ago, that the VA is not using authorities in that legislation to fast track the firing of VA employees who've been accused of misconduct or poor performance. You've said that language really was getting the VA more in front of federal courts and losing in those cases more than doing anything productive on the accountability front. Just as that incoming Congress is coming in here, what's your message to them when it comes to this whole policy area?
Yeah, when the incoming Congress comes in, if they ask me questions, I'll give them messages. That I don't need to communicate messages to them through you guys as much as I love you and appreciate you guys. So let me not suggest that before these people are even sworn in that I'm somehow sending them a message. I look forward to, for the couple of weeks that I'm here, while they're here, I look very much forward to working with them. I do notice that there's a lot of veterans in that group, and I think, as I've said in this room before, I get to travel the country in this job, and every place I see something interesting happening, inevitably there are veterans involved in that. That's definitely the case in Congress as well. Now, I will just give you my thoughts about the various authorities that we have here. First and foremost, as an HRO, for example, at VHA, the Veterans Health Administration, a high reliability organization, we obsess about failure. We learn everything we can about failure. We empower our clinicians to make decisions at the point of care, informed by their expertise, not informed by somebody telling them what is the optimal investment. So we want our clinicians to feel so empowered. In exchange, we expect accountability for those actions. And when our providers do not live up to that accountability, those accountability requirements, we hold them accountable. We hold them to them. And we've talked about in this room a series of examples of us doing that. Detroit is a good example of that. Denver, Aurora is another good example of that. Those are just two examples in the last year where we, using our existing authorities, have moved with dispatch to change and improve situations where veterans were not getting the care that they deserve. Next paragraph. It is true also that there are additional authorities that Congress has enacted that when VA has tried to use them in the last 5 years, we end up more before federal magistrates and judges than in individual conversations with our providers and holding them to account. I'd much prefer us to be able to just manage our building rather than spend so much time before judges. And so that's what we've tried to do here. The fact that we're providing more care, more benefits to more veterans more quickly than ever is evidence that that's working. It's not perfect in VA. Last thing, we also take very seriously our responsibilities to go to Congress to inform them of instances where we are not performing to our highest not performing to our expectations. And we routinely do that. And you guys are very familiar with all the times that we've done that. I'm sure even just this week. And so we take very seriously the congressional role, the role the founders envisioned for the Article 1 members of this government. And I hope that, that continues here, right? Because I think Congress is an important partner. I think any fair assessment will tell you that we have been very forthcoming with Congress. And I'm proud of that fact.
All right, thank you.
Well, I hate to sound like we're asking you about everything at the end of the year, but can we talk about the infrastructure review?
Yeah.
The commission that was canned, and then you were going to go back and look. What's the status of that review? Yeah. Are you going to get that done before the end of your tenure here?
Yeah, I mean, Let me just say some things, and then let's determine how I can be helpful on the question, because when you say, will you get that done, I'm not sure what the that is. And so let me explain to you kind of what the authority is, and then what we're doing, and then what I think you should expect. So the authority of the commission that you talked about is called the Air Commission. I'm not sure what A and I and R stand for, to be honest with you. But the Air Commission was enacted by Congress in the middle of the last administration. And it set up a process by which we divvied up the country into a series of markets. And we did an assessment of each of those markets of, most importantly, what do we think the veteran need is in that market? And importantly, what do we think the veteran need will be prospectively out in a number of years? That's the kind of the baseline analysis. Overlaying on that is an analysis of what are the existing VA facilities, what are the existing private facilities, how do those two kinds of facilities work together to meet that baseline assessment of what veterans are going to need in the out years. And then the last piece of that is, okay, in light of all that analysis, what should our infrastructure planning project look like so that we're in a position to meet that veteran need? And that process was set up in large measure to also be able to factor in into that analysis that there are VA facilities in many of these markets that are aged or aging. And so we wanted to have a basis for which to make a determination as to whether those aging facilities should be updated or replaced with something else. So we did that whole project in March 2022. We put it out there. We are hoping that Congress would then, appoint the commissioners, so those commissioners would look at our plan and either give it thumbs up or give it thumbs down, the whole plan in toto. And then that would serve as the basis for our planning going forward. Congress decided not to do that because there were some things in there that they were not comfortable with. The same law that created that whole process requires us to do that baseline assessment, veteran need by market, overlain with provider capacity, VA, and private sector in that same market. Requires us to do that every 4 years. That is the process that we're engaged in right now. I don't know what the timeline is, and we can get you, Patricia, what the timeline is for the completion of this next version, the next quadrennial review of that, to give that analytic basis. So I'm fairly certain that will not be done by the time I leave. But that work is not tied to me. That work is tied to the statute. Last thing I'll say about this. I think you're also aware of the fact that we are aggressively looking at we are aggressively using all of our authorities to do as much infrastructure development as we can. And I think this is, and I think probably every VA secretary would say that. I think a thing that is new is that we have worked aggressively with our federal partners, most profoundly DOD, but also USDA, to make sure that where there is infrastructure available in those markets where we have veterans who have access needs, and that even if that's not VA infrastructure, but it's DOD infrastructure or USDA infrastructure, we go and access that and we begin providing care out of those facilities. And so that work is ongoing, and we'll make sure that we give you an update on that before we leave. But that's kind of extra the Air Commission process. Now, I'll stop and you tell me if that's actually responsive to what you asked, or is there something else I was supposed to?
It is part of the foundational sort of charge of the commission was to identify buildings that were obsolete, real estate that was obsolete, that
Yes.
you all still have on your budget, sucks up a lot of money and they're just not being used, or it's just random real estate.
Correct.
Have you been able to shed any of that since the Congress scuttled the commission report? And,
Yeah, I mean, the
and
verbs in your question, scuttle and shed. I mean, it's like you have strong
I've been
feelings
doing
about
too
this.
many crossword puzzles recently.
Yeah.
Anyway, have you been able to get rid of some of this burdenous real estate that was a major complaint when you first came into office?
Yeah, it's still a major complaint, right? I mean, let's just take New Hampshire. The facility in New Hampshire, there's really, really cold winter year before last. Gets really cold, pipes freeze, pipes burst. We ended up having to shut down. It's not even a hospital. It's an outpatient. It's a major, multi-specialty kind of outpatient facility, but it's an outpatient facility. We had to really curtail access there, and that is a version of the kinds of challenges we face. So we continue to face those challenges. Have we been able to close certain facilities? One on the list is a facility in South Dakota, in Hot Springs. That facility is still open. Our plan would have us replace that facility with a multi-specialty, community-based outpatient clinic that would allow us to see dramatically more veterans in that facility, in that geography, than the existing more than 100-year-old facility. We've not been able to make that effort. Nevertheless, we are still continuing to make investments in South Dakota, including in Rapid City proper, as well as new community-based outpatient clinics in other rural settings in South Dakota. So all that process continues. But in that instance, the Hot Springs facility, Congress has made very clear that they have expectations on that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh boy, that was not quick. Thanks for sticking around. There was no smoking gun, but I heard some nuggets that show what it's like dealing with the federal government. Makes me think of that Titanic as Jack and Rose were wishing it would turn. Slowly, slowly, slowly. But we know the end of that story. Moving on, as you can see with the gray bar, there has been a steady decrease in VA personnel since April of 2024. The VA Secretary said in a previous press conference that they plan to hire more people in 2025. Whether we like it or not, government jobs are protected. We are vets, we know this. If you ever had a bad GS working at your unit, or maybe fogging a mirror, it's almost impossible to get rid of them. If Congress provided some sort of shortcut to get rid of low performers, it seems that the courts don't agree, and that's a lot of time and money wasted. There has to be a better way. How much money is going down the drain due to aging facilities? This is the same problem we have on bases right now. That war blank check is long gone, and tough decisions are made between facilities for active units, trying to prepare for war, or just your barracks. There is not enough money to update facilities. There are service members working in temporary buildings that are way past their expiration date. We are not done yet with the analysis from the press conference. More to follow. Gunny Beef out.